Blog Talk Radio.
2017. Sick Truth. The big talk for you. What up? Shout out Navo King. Big Boo. Me. Shout out everybody. Check it. Hey yo, debate talk 4. You so you can absorb information free of charge so you can afford. Get poppin', live off the greatest doctrine. Sip the juice, know the ledge like the great Rakim. On a mission, not a small time thing. Defense biblical, offense got the haters watching. Hands are skill, footwork is ill. Get in the den, see if you can stand for real. If you rep Kim and Cool, yo I rep Israel. If you Torah based only or new as well, welcome to listen. Style always fair decision. Two sides come together to compare what's written. Seeking the facts, seeking the maps, teaching the acts, leaking the tracks. Call while you eating your snacks. Music in my bones, DNA, C double E and K. Little something for the showtime, we can play. One love, one love, one love.
Of the Beats, the Beat Talk for You Radio.
What's going on, brothers and sisters? This is Brother Stanley Sylvain of Sin No More Ministries. I'm letting you know that every time I'm not putting together some lessons to bless the people out there, I am definitely listening to Sal Showtime and Debate Talk for You. God bless you all. Peace.
Yeah, Shalom. I want to give a shout out to Sal at Debate Talk for You. What's going on? Hey, Debate Talk for You is where it's at. You know, get your verses straight, put your cell phone record, come on board, present what you got. If anyone try to cut you off, Sal will just mute that guy's mic. You know, he'll let you express what you got. He'll let you present what you studied for. Let the audience decide if what you got, you know, is inside the scriptures. Debate Talk for You. Once again, shout out to Sal. Terrific job. Hey, you can press it number 1 or find yourself on a lion's den.
Shalom, Israel. This is Pastor Nobody from thefountainofisrael.com. When I'm not feeding the flock or studying the word, I get a front row seat in the Lion's Den with Sal Showtime. This is where Bible gladiators cross swords and settle the score for the entertainment and education of the people. Fountainofisrael.com, Pastor Nobody. Debate Talk for You, you're in the Lion's Den. Shalom.
Hey, what's going on? This is Felix, also known as Enoch, student at Absolute Bible Truth, and I'd like to give a big shout out to Sal Showtime and Debate Talk for You. I'm a frequent listener, been listening since season 1. Keep doing your thing, and for everybody out there who can hear this, send in your donations so Debate Talk for You could go on for a long time. All right, y'all. Peace.
If you need an added push to have your products heard by 1,000 listeners out there, come advertise on Debate Talk for You Radio. All you need to do is send me an email at debatetalkforyou@gmail.com, and it's a $25 fee for a whole year to advertise, whether it be a live event, a book signing, merchandise, website, or if you have your own radio show that you'd like to promote. Once again, advertise right here on Debate Talk for You Radio. Take advantage of the low fee. Trust me, no one else will give you such a low fee to advertise via worldwide radio. So once again, send me an email at debatetalkforyou@gmail.com for more details. You don't want to miss checking out the most controversial video of the year. Everybody's talking about it. A video produced by Absolute Bible Truth teacher, Brother Josh. The video is entitled, Is There a Secret Gay Agenda Amongst the Comedic Conscious Groups? Once again, it's one of the most talked about videos right now, and you want to make sure you go check it out. So go to the website, www.absolutebibletruth.com/store. And once you get it, it's an automatic download. You don't have to wait for it to be sent to you in the mail. It's an automatic download. So once again, go check out the video, get it fast, and get it now.
That's our popular demand. You're now listening to Debate Talk U Radio.
This is Ronald Francoeur representing from Atlanta, Georgia. And when I'm not busy in the studio, I'm checking out Debate Talk for You Radio. Keep up the great work, Sal Showtime.
Hey, what's going on, family? How you guys doing? Welcome to another show. You're now listening to Season 7 of Debate Talk for You. Of course, I'm your host, Sal Showtime, and it is Monday. You know what that means. It's time for the Relationship Challenge. It's episode 33. Episode 33. For those that are new to the show and never heard of this particular segment, go check it out in the archives. Of course, you can go check it out on Blog Talk Radio, like on the blogtalkradio.com/Debate Talk for You. Of course, we're in the iTunes in the podcast section. Just type in the search box Debate Talk the number 4 and letter U, and check out the archives there. Subscribe, and of course, we're on YouTube as well. If you want to check us out live, it's Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Today's show is entitled, Is the Strong Black Woman a Proverbs 31 Woman? Again, today's show is entitled, Is the Strong Black Woman a Proverbs 31 Woman? All right, so like I always say, get your pen and pads ready. Get ready to take down some notes. And, of course, we're going to introduce everybody that's usually here when it's this particular segment, the Relationship Challenge. Of course, we have the host here. Definitely got on a platform right about now. Check out the YouTube channels. I'm going to have everything in the description box. This is the one and only Emunah, Israel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brother Sal. All praise be to the Most High, the Holy One of Creation. It's good to be back. I was like, oh, man, we have a show? And I forgot it was Monday. So I look forward to the conversation. How are you, Brother Sal? How are you?
On the grind as usual. You know how we do.
Yep.
Is there any new projects coming out, or how you do anything that you want to advertise?
You know how I do. So, really, I've been, Sister Mayanah, she's usually, more interactive on social media. So I've gone into that space, let me just say, very interesting space in the comment sections on social media. So that's kind of what I've been doing, touching base with the people and just listening to the thought processes that we as a people have. And definitely after all of this interaction, look forward to a book coming soon. Yeah.
All right, that's right. That's the host right there, Emunah. Welcome to the show. Do me a favor, everybody else that's out there, because we have a lot of callers that's still on the panel. Press number 1 for me. Akwetey, Mayanah, if you're out there, you got press number 1. By the way, Water Swordsman said he couldn't make it tonight. He couldn't make it for this particular show, but I believe the next one we'll have will be here. But he couldn't make it for tonight. So, Akwetey, I think I see you on the phone line. Let's go to my brother Akwetey. Welcome to the show. Can you hear me, Akwetey? 702. Are you there? Hello. Can you hear me, my brother? Hopefully there's no technical difficulties. I'd like to check on him behind the scenes. But, we're still waiting for Mayanah to call in. And once again, y'all, you know that number, 319-527-6239. Make sure y'all call in with your questions and your comments. In the meanwhile, what you can do if you want to, give us a brief intro on what this topic, how this topic came about, you can do that. While we wait for everybody else to press number 1. All right, go ahead, Emunah.
All right, concerning Mayanah, I'm going to have to check because I know that sometimes on her cell phone she's not able to get through, so I do see a Facebook notification. I'm not really sure. I'm going to have to go on the computer and check. But the topic is funny. Like I said in my social media conversations of late, this topic was brought out, and the response was weird, to say the least. But this conversation was brought up, I believe, by a listener who wanted us to discuss it before this point. And so we kind of put it out there on social media just to see some of the people who may not be on Debate Talk for You or who don't know about Debate Talk for You to see whether or not, what were their thoughts. We're going to go hopefully a little bit into the Hebraic concept of what is being said and how the thought of the, quote, strong black woman has left such a bad taste in the mouths of everyone that as soon as they hear it, you know what I'm saying, it jars them. And so when we went through the process of kind of defining what Proverbs 31 is speaking about and all the different elements of this individual, then we have to see whether or not the text is actually saying that she's strong and what it means today. And can we look at the women today and say they're strong? It's just a whole lot of kind of then conversation to now, and then kind of see how we can go forward with the healing process. So with that said, Brother Sal, if you give me 1 second, let me check on to see if Sister Mayanah needs me to patch her in. I will be right back.
Yeah, actually, I see you on the switchboard. I think everybody's here now. Let's go to Akwetey. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Hello, everybody. Good to be back.
All right, man.
Hey,
you're a busy man, traveling the world. You're doing your thing, traveling the world and everything. What's going on, Akwetey? How you feeling?
Pretty good. Yes, it's been busy going back and forth. Actually, just got home and getting ready for the show. So I'm excited to be back.
And, we definitely appreciate you. All right, let's bring in my sister Mayanah. Welcome to the show.
Hey, shalom, Brother Sal. Hello, everybody. How's every little thing? Can you hear me?
We're doing pretty good. What's going on with you? What's happening? What's the latest?
Everything is going well. Glad to be back. Oh, just to let you know, the sister who Emunah alluded to that first proposed this particular topic is also around. So keep an eye out for her and patch her in when you get a chance. It will be Onleilove. You might remember her from the last show. So, yeah, she's the sister we're talking about. And so
okay.
She should be calling in shortly, if not already, on your switchboard.
Yeah, well, if you out there, through first digits of your number, well, you got to press number 1. If you out there, press number 1, and we'll bring you in the conversation. But, I'm going to look in the meanwhile, as the show progress, and she'll see if I can find your number on the switchboard. Mm-hmm. But in the meanwhile, if you're out there, you got to press number 1, all right, and then we'll bring you in the conversation. But, Emunah, you can take it away.
All right, so that's what the question is on the board. I'm trying to go back. The opening number is 718-501, Brother Sal.
I got it.
Okay. No problem. Sister Mayanah just told him. So she says she's probably not going to be able to do the whole duration, but that's no problem. She can definitely come on and let us know, what led her to want to talk about this topic. And like I said, this is something that I've worked on as it relates to the angry black woman syndrome. Another word for it is the independent woman syndrome or the strong black woman syndrome. And so when you look at what melanated women have become based on, especially this diaspora, through the transatlantic slave trade and what she kind of has been forced to become, it has been a saving grace as well as a curse. You know what I mean? And so there are many people who are angry now at her for the very coping mechanism or survival mechanism that allowed her to get to this space. And so we want to kind of, look at what the text says as well as look at some of the things, like I said earlier, that he embodies today and find out where's the in-between, where's the medium, where can we say that this is Hebraic, but, the extreme is not. Because I think that some people, when you contrast the Proverbs 31 woman to the weak you know what I'm saying, dependent melanated or so-called black women, a lot of people are like, what's going on here? That's not our personality. It never has been. So hopefully we can go ahead and jump into this and see what the opening thoughts are on the conversation. Yes, Sister Onleilove.
Yeah, that's to let you know our special guest is here. 718-501. Welcome to the show.
Shalom, everyone. This is Sister Onleilove Chica, and I'm the founder of Prophetic Whirlwind, Uncovering the Black Biblical Destiny. And as I was researching our Hebraic origins, I started to come up against just a whole new way of thinking, because many of us are still operating in a Greco-Roman mindset. And so when we come to these terms, Proverbs 31 woman, virtuous woman, strong black woman, Hebrew woman, we're still looking at it through a Greco-Roman lens. In Greece and Rome, philosophers like Plato and Socrates said women were God's mistakes. They were malformed men. They hated women, and they didn't even want to have sex with women most of the time. So then you take that mind, the mind of the man of Athens or the woman of Athens, and we bring that into a Hebraic culture where women were not seen as mistakes from the Most High, but actually were seen as the Etzer Kenegdo, which has wrongly been translated helpmate in Genesis, and actually is a term that is only used for the Most High when he's rescuing Israel from destruction, Etzer. And then we look at the virtuous woman, and again, when you look at that term in the Hebrew, it's a Shet Chayel, which would more rightly be translated woman of valor or woman of warfare. So we really have to make sure that when we're trying to talk about the role of the Hebrew man and the Hebrew woman and the family establishment, that we're not just slapping some Greco-Roman beliefs and putting a head wrap and fringes on it and calling it Hebrew. So I'm really excited about this conversation tonight, and sorry I'm a little late.
No problem, Sister Onleilove. We're actually just getting started, so you right on time. Thank you for your opening statements and for letting us know why you wanted to take a look at this topic, and we have heard you. If you're out there, let me just say this, for the relationship challenge on Debate Talk, shout out to Brother Sal for allowing us 33 episodes to come and have these conversations. I know we have a lot of disgruntled listeners out there, you know what I'm saying? And I just want to let you know, just the same way Sister Onleilove had a topic of conversation that was on her mind, we ain't here to fight. We ain't here to argue. We're here to have a conversation and hopefully come forth with some healing. So no need to grumble. You know what I'm saying? Let's practice those things that we know and come forward so we can have respectable conversations. Because when we return, if we don't have this first level of commerce between us, which is communication, then we're not going to be able to build anything. And we need a level of respect to be able to do so. So feel free. Sister Mayanah, Brother Akwetey, I'm going to come to Sister Mayanah. Brother Akwetey, we've been missing you for a couple of weeks, but we're good to hear you back. Good to hear you back and that you're doing okay. Feel free to let us know how you're doing. And what are your thoughts on the Proverbs 31, Kayel woman, or Ishet Kayel, and could she be termed the, quote, strong black woman? The mic is yours, Brother Akwetey.
Okay, I'm going to keep it very brief till we go into it. I think the Proverbs 31 woman is actually a fairy tale, and I'm hoping no one is trying to use that to judge or make a case that this is what a perfect, strong black woman is supposed to be. I'll just leave it as that till we get it.
Ooh, Brother Akwetey, you can't just spit on the mic and just drop it on the ground. I'm going to let you rock out, though, Brother Akwetey. It's all good. Thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and unpack that as the conversation goes on, and definitely give an opportunity to hear your thoughts on the matter. Sister Mayanah, the mic is yours.
Is just because I missed it, is Brother Awar joining us this evening?
Now, Brother Awar isn't here this evening.
Oh, okay. I was going to yield the mic to him.
That's a negative.
Well, speaking of negatives, it was Aristotle, I believe, that was putting forth the idea that women were just incomplete men. And so Sister Onleilove is correct to say that this idea that womanhood has to be regulated or compensated by the masculine principle really comes from this idea. The Platonic idea that had some kind of ambivalence towards the usefulness of women because women don't create semen. So that might be something that's familiar to the Hebrew ear because it's not an uncommon refrain to hear that everything is about the seed, obviously, and the seed of the man. And this is something that was a Platonic idea. This is what Plato was putting forward. This is something that Aristotle also believed about womanhood. And so when we hear from Sister Onleilove that this is a Roman Greco thought, that there is a great deal of information on that. And this is not an idea that exists in Hebraic thought, because when we look at how women are figured in the Tanakh, and we see the ways in which women participated in the culture and contributed to the culture, it's countercultural to reduce her to a footnote in her own narrative. And so we'll be discussing how the Hebrew womanhood was viewed by Hebrews in the text, and not so much from this very specific kind of separation of time and separation of a divide in the thought where we go into this period. I said Hellenistic before, and it caused a little bit of pushback, but it's a term that belongs to the era, and I didn't make it up. It's just the appropriate term for the period. And in this particular period, there's a particular thought. And just to piggyback on what Sister Onleilove said, and I'll leave it so that we can enter into the conversation as a whole, in terms of sex with the woman, it is because of the fact that the Platonic thought and the Aristotle thought that the woman was something that was beneath the man. They believed that sex could only happen between equals. Having sex with a woman was not having real sex because she wasn't a real person. So in order to have sex with a real person or with an equal, you had to do that with another man. And so you see so much of this older man, younger man relationship. And for them, they didn't view that as being what we view it as now, because they looked at it as sex between full humans. The woman had not evolved to full humanhood or full humanity, and so they didn't find anything wrong with it. This was their reasoning. So it's very important to understand what we're borrowing from in contemporary conversations when we say things that have this kind of echo. And with that, I yield the floor.
All right, now it looks like we done rolled over to Greece and Rome and jumping into some thought processes and trying to see whether or not this is the lens by which we view the text. So definitely, let's go ahead and unpack this. The floor is open at this time. I guess I'll go back to Sister Onleilove and go ahead and unpack your thoughts on the Proverbs 31 woman as it relates to what the text is saying before we can get to modern day. Sister Onleilove, the mic is yours.
Yeah, her call actually dropped, y'all. Her call dropped. Do me a favor, press number 1. If you out there, you got to press number 1, Onleilove, because, we have a lot of listeners on the phone line. Press number 1, and we can bring you back in. All right, so we're just waiting for Onleilove to press 1 if she's out there. But her call definitely dropped. I'm trying to find her on the switchboard now. All right, press number 1 on your phone if you're out there. Press number 1 on your phone. But if you want to go to somebody else, Mona, you can in the meanwhile.
All right, we could go to Brother Akwetey. He dropped something. He said that it's a fantasy, Brother Akwetey. Please share with the audience before everybody clutches their pearls and other parts of them. What did you mean by that, Brother Akwetey, that it's a fantasy? Feel free to share.
Yeah, you're not going to believe this. Akwetey phone just dropped, too, just there. Akwetey phone just dropped too. I don't know if it's a blog talk thing.
Drop time. Drop. All right.
Yeah.
Mayanah then. Sister Mayanah.
Okay, well, I'll try to pick up some of the threads that were left behind by Brother Akwetey. I, too, have a similar view on, or my research has brought me to a similar conclusion about the 31st proverb. If we were to examine the anatomy of this particular proverb, the first portion of it, the portion that is very often skipped altogether to journey down to the 10th verse, the very first part is prophecy. And it is the prophecy that was taught to the king by his mother. And I'm not sure if it's deliberate that the female principle is excluded from when this is recycled and kind of presented, and goes down to from the 10th verse to the 31st verse. And these verses are poetry. I wouldn't say that it's a myth or a legend, but it's clearly poetry, and I'll tell you why. If you were to look at it in the Hebrew, beginning at the 10th verse and following it every verse after it, it's an acrostic poem. It's not just any kind of poem. It's an acrostic poem. And acrostic poetry, everyone is familiar with it in some way or another, and they just may not know the technical term for it. But if you've ever received a card from your child from school where they say M is for, if they want to try to a poem for their mom, and this is M is for mother, O is for, obvious, M is for, what those are, that's called acrostic poetry. In the Psalm, in the 31st Psalm, beginning at that verse, you will see that begins with one letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which would mean that the first one will be the Aleph, then the Bet, and it goes that way, all the way down in the appropriate Hebrew order. One word, the first word will be have the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet and continues all the way down to the end. And when you see it in Hebrew, the poetry is obvious. So I would say that perhaps Akwetey was alluding to the fact that this is not instruction. This is an ode to womanhood. This is the Hebrew mind saying this is what they see in the Hebrew woman and what the result would be. The prophecy or the lesson to be learned is in the previous verses. And so I submit that for consideration and conversation.
All right. For those who don't know, as Sister Mayanah said, if you have the Tanakh or you're able to see Hebrew, it's kind of like it's also a Psalm of David that's written in that way as well.
119, yeah.
119 going all the way down. And for those who be like, what you talking about? You have to get the Hebrew translation for you to be able to see that it starts with each letter. And that what she's saying.
All right, pardon the interruption. Just let you know everybody's back on the panel whenever you're ready.
All right, everybody's back.
I'm like, why is South roaring at me? Okay. All right, then. So we have Sister Mayanah open up. We're going to come back to Brother Akwetey for him to let us know. Sister Mayanah tried to help you out there, Brother Akwetey, and giving us a little background of the poetic side of Proverbs 31. Feel free to unpack your thought as well, Brother Akwetey. The mic is yours.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me. What we should be... Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What we should realize is when we deal with Solomon is said to be one of the wisest person who walked the earth. And we read in his writings. So we should know the level of intelligence and the subtleties that he would use to write the text. Proverbs are wise sayings. You cannot read it literally. If you do that, you're going to misunderstand his message. Could it be that he's not actually talking about a woman at all? Could the woman be an allegory for something else? When I read the book of Proverbs, that is what I see. Because you will notice that the book of Proverbs is actually divided into 3 parts. And I believe, I stand to be corrected, as always, that the place where he talks about a woman, it starts from chapters 25. He's actually talking about the Torah. It's interesting. Back home, when I say back home is Ghana. Torah is looked at as a woman of valor. And if you should insert the Torah into Proverbs 31, or the Proverbs 31 woman, see that it fit quite well. I've never used it to teach anything about a strong woman or being a woman of valor. I've always used it as the Torah. That's why I said it's a fairy tale, because if you really look at it and you're honest with yourself, nobody can meet that criteria. And I'm hoping that we're not using that for our black strong women, that this is the criteria that they have to meet. I think it's not reading the text how you're supposed to read it. On a simple level, you can say it's talking about a woman, but I think it's more beyond that. And we should remember, these are proverbs, wise sayings, and the message is hidden behind the text.
Come on now, Akwetey. You can't mess around and take Proverbs 31, one of the only spaces that people say, you see, here is an example. For other places, it's kind of hidden more than in this space. And so somebody will be right now twitching in their seat about to press 1 on you, because to take Proverbs 31 from the sisters or from those who strive to do what is right in the eyesight of the Most High and be like, nah, check your mind. It's not you. It's Torah. You know, I'm just saying. So we're going to come around. You know, some would say, come on, Brother Akwetey, he said that his mama told him about what kind of woman he should get. And so I hear you on that, and I'll definitely, we're going to continue, because listening audience right now is scratching their head wrap and their keyboards trying to figure that out. But I'm going to go to Sister Onleilove right now. I'm going to go to Sister Onleilove and hear her thoughts on this conversation. Sister Onleilove, the mic is yours.
Hi, so I'm sorry, I'm actually multitasking because this was a surprise for me to be on, but I'll make sure that I'm ready so I don't have to get ready. But I think with passages from the Torah, this is a book of poetry. This is a song. This is a metaphor for many different things. But I also think it can give some guidance to what a positive Hebrew woman is. I don't think any woman can double it. I don't think any woman can live up to all of this, but I do think there are aspects that we see with women in our community. I think when we're looking at the biblical text, we need to, see that there is multiple levels to it. But one item I want to point out is this is something that is usually preached at towards women, but actually the poem is written to a son. So, that kind of changes how you view it if you think it's a list of, demands for a woman, but it's actually directed towards a son. And every Shabbat night in certain Jewish homes, they do sing this to the women, but originally the way the poem is set up is that it's a mother talking to her son. And you see the foolish woman juxtaposed to the woman of wisdom. And throughout the scriptures, you do see this woman of wisdom, whether it's the Ruach HaKodesh, whether, it's the Esther Kenegdo, whether it's the Eshet Sayel, that there is this theme of women and wisdom, going together. So, again, there is an allegorical part of it that is pointing to the wisdom of Torah, but there is also women that we see who exemplify some of these terms, and actually Ruth was also called a Chael if you look at the Hebrew. But I think when we talk about this concept of what a Hebrew woman should be or what a black woman should be, we should also understand that the Proverbs 31 woman who is being talked about as an example in this passage or poetic figure actually had staff helping her. And one thing that some scholars say is we need to be mindful that this is a woman from the upper class. Her husband sat at the gate. Even if it's not a literal woman, the woman that is being described is not a woman that is living a burdened down life. And so I see this scripture used, whether it's in Christianity, whether it's in Judaism, whether it's in the Hebrew faith, to make women feel that all they have to contribute is cooking and cleaning, when this, this character in this poem actually is hiring people to do the cooking and the cleaning. So then what is she actually being described doing? She's described buying property. She's described, selling. She's described doing a lot of things that Hebrew women today are discouraged from doing. And then when we think about wisdom being equated to a woman, how can we have camps say women are not even supposed to deal with the scriptures? I was told in New York City by a camp preaching on the streets in Manhattan that I couldn't even tell my friend, who was another woman, about a psalm, because that would be women teaching women. But yet we see wisdom being compared to a woman. So that's what I would offer now is, what are we really looking at, and who is this really guided towards? Because right now in our Hebrew community, we see foolish women being called virtuous women, and we see virtuous women being called wicked women and Jezebels. And all throughout the scripture, you have the woman of wisdom versus the woman of foolishness, all the way to the whore of Babylon versus maybe, Yeshua's mother. If you go into Revelation, we can see two women that are being pitted as a choice. And I think the Most High wants us to make the wisest choice. But poems and allegories always can teach us and give us lessons for our practical life. That's why they're used from generation to generation. But it doesn't mean that women should have to beat themselves down to be this perfect ideal, because, again, this message was actually addressed mother to son. So that's what I would offer for now.
Thank you for that, Sister Onleilove. Woo, multitasking indeed. Thank you for that. And one thing that you said that stuck out to me is very true. There's a lot of unrighteousness that's being called righteousness, and righteousness that's being called unrighteousness, and a lot of unrealistic expectations that, conversations like this allow us afford us the opportunity to investigate. So once again, thank you for taking the time on such short notice to let your voice be heard. We're going to come to Sister Mayanah now and let us hear their thoughts on what Brother Akwetey said, as well as what Sister Onleilove said. The mic is yours. Brother Styles, Sister Mayanah still there?
Can I be heard?
Yep.
There you go.
So we hear you now. Good.
In listening to the other panelists, Akwetey and Sister Onleilove, what I find in common in their reflections is the idea that the latter portion of the 31st proverb has been used as a tool to kind of pigeonhole the women into particular expectation. And in my experience dealing with women and speaking with women for some 2 decades now, I have heard the women reflect back to me that this feels very burdensome because it is so very often lifted as a standard that they feel that it's something they can never aspire to because of the fact that there's so many elements in it that not every woman can do. As Sister Onleilove pointed out, that the previous portion, the context of this introduction of the idea, the woman is being matched not to the butcher, the baker, or the candlestick maker, but to a king. So the mother is advising the king not to give his strength unto a woman, but to find a woman that is already strong. The word for strength, when she is speaking to her son, is repeated although it's translated as virtue, the same word chayil is used. Two different words are not used, but the translator chooses to make this distinction that does not appear in the Hebrew. Consequently, it is very often misused and mistranslated and misapplied, and consequently, the women start to feel as if they start to feel beaten down and burdened or crushed even under this heavy expectation, because it's always, well, you're not like the Proverbs 31 woman, and everyone is wagging their finger at her. And then if she does start to demonstrate some of the things that are put forward as virtuous, whether it is as an ideal or as a suggestion or as a reference to Torah, that she is participating in commerce, that she is active in her household. And this is, as you see, this is all an active participation in the running of the household. It is not a passive participation in the running of the household. She is clothing, she is feeding, she is directing. And it's not that there's a masculine principle puppeteering, as you might say, to provide the visual, that he's not in the background forwarding any ideas. She's intelligent enough, she's prudent enough, she has enough knowledge to do this without being so directly governed by the masculine principle. And there is no negative pushback for that indeed she is praised for her ability to have this type of agency, that she is praised for having this type of chayil, and that the man does not feel intimidated or emasculated by it, and that he not only praises her, but he himself receives praises. So whether we believe this or we understand this to be an allusion to Torah, whether we understand this to be an allegory, the fact remains that this is represented as the feminine principle. And that, like Emunah said, can't wholly or fully be taken away, because this does embody many of the characteristics and expectations that the Creator put on the feminine principle. The woman is supposed to have this type of ability. She's supposed to add and contribute to her household and not just be a passive element in someone else's home. Because we see that when we talk about, since we're living in the Proverbs right now, it says that a wise woman builds up her home. And so it's understood that she's not a visitor in someone else's home. That this is their conjugal home. This is a home that she shares with her husband, not as another child in the home or another dependent in the home, but as the partner in the home. And before anyone, as clutches their pearls or the like, this is not to suggest sameness or equality, but to suggest that there is a value placed on her presence. Again, this is not to say that there is a sameness or an equality, but that there is a value specific to the feminine principle that doesn't get diminished by the Tanakh.
All right, thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayanah. We're having a conversation. We're coming from different perspectives. Is the quote-unquote black woman of Proverbs, strong black of Proverbs 31 woman? We've, again, like I said, different thought processes on this, so we're going to continue to go around. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to press 1 so that we can hear your thoughts. I wanted to read something when I initially back in, what was that, April, posed the question. The responses were like visceral. They were like, a lot of men were like, almost wanted to throw up on the post. Like, what type of madness have you said? So, one commenter said, "Are you serious? What so-called black woman will go to work while her husband kicks it with the elders? Stop romancing the truth and reread Proverbs 31. Very few women of any race gets down like that." What are your thoughts on that? To me it appears that he's rejecting, he's kind of like on Akwetey's thought process that this is not attainable, because who really is able to do all these things? But even more interesting, I found him asking the question, the way he interpreted that the husband is in the gates and he's known in the gates, what so-called black woman will go to work while her husband kicks it with the elders? Go ahead. Who wants to speak? The mic is open.
Sorry, it's for Onleilove. So again, he wasn't just kicking it with the elders on the corner, but he was when you sit at a gate, that's a seat of political power. And if you go to Israel today, there are different gates to the city. So it basically is saying he's able to be prominent in the community politically because of what this wife is doing and because of the wisdom that she's bringing to the situation. If you look at most successful politicians, actually, they're, whether you know it or not, their wives play more of a role than you know, whether you like her or hate her. I'm not a fan of her, but Hillary Clinton always played a major role in Bill Clinton's political career. So, this wisdom can be used for bad or for good. But I think if we're trying to equate their lifestyle with some of the dysfunction we see or with our modern context, we won't understand it. And also, we do have a lot of women in the Hebrew community who are actually working, even in polygamous situations, while the man is at home kicking it with the elders. If we want to say, and I'm not saying I agree with that, but I can even find examples of that. But also just realizing that the Eshet Chayel, which is translated virtuous woman, was a military term, and during the Crusades, some of the English Bible translators did not want a military term relating to women. So that's why we read this term, virtuous woman, in the Torah. Though if you look at Yeshua and the woman with the issue of blood, when she grabs his hem, he says the virtue has left me. So virtue is also corresponding with strength. But I think, yes, just having an understanding of what sitting at the gate means politically would give a lot of help.
I would agree with that. Brother Akwetey, I know you all the way on the left side with us, but help us out here. Let's say that she is a woman. She's a personification of this thought, or a queen, basically. Everybody likes to say she's speaking to her son. He's a king. That would make her a queen, right? What are your thoughts as it relates to some of the verses that people use oftentimes, whether appropriately or inappropriately? The mic is yours.
Okay, yeah, it's I'm in shock actually, because I don't know this is happening. I never knew this was happening.
Oh yeah.
That we take these verses and we use it as a benchmark for women. Is that what you're saying is happening?
Absolutely, they are absolutely doing.
Yes, even in the Christian church, yes.
Wow. Okay. Should I say it's a culture shock? Because I've never had this. When I read it, even if I read it on the simple level and remove all the allegories from it, I don't see the possibility of any woman meeting up to these standards. Yes, there are a lot of good things that Solomon mentions here, or Solomon, or whoever is speaking to Solomon, advising him. Say one woman is
it me or is it Brother Akwetey?
You're breaking up, Akwetey. Yeah, you're breaking up. We can't hear you. Can you hear us?
Now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You was breaking up. Yeah, you was breaking up. Yeah, can you hear me, Akwetey? Can you hear me? Yeah, I think you have some signal issues. You're still on the line, though. You're still on the line. You're just going to get in maybe in the right area. Yep. But
can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I can hear you now. I got you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I would say that it's to come all the way to Proverbs 31 to talk about a virtuous woman, I think coming too late. When we look at the she tells us everything about her, what she was created for, how precious she was. You don't have to go that far to come and wait for Solomon to tell Solomon's mother, whoever this woman is, to tell us about how virtuous a woman is and her responsibilities and how she adds to the family, how important she is. In addition, she's there to help, to assist. She's there to build. You know, the man was created from dust. The Hebrew says she was built. It means God took his time for a reason. So I find it so difficult. It's a shock to me. What you're saying, I'm shocked that people would actually use this to say this is what women are supposed to do. And it sounds like a burden, a huge burden. But I'm still in shock. I don't know what to say, actually.
Brother Akwetey is in shock. One of the culture, like you said, there is definitely a cultural barrier to a certain degree because, Brother Akwetey, there's two sides of this conversation. There's the side of the conversation where Brother Akwetey is standing where he did not lose contact with culture, context, and actually seeing working models in his reality. And then you have the other side of the equation where those of us who have grown and born in the diaspora of many generations has lost contact with culture, context, and our reality. And so while somebody may say you may have a lot of more information to go on, when many of us are returning, the text is all that we have. And I think Proverbs 31, in all fairness, for many who are returning, and even Christians, as Sister Onleilove said, the comprehensiveness of it. If you're not diligent in reading throughout the Tanakh, you got to piece together the picture. If you don't know Hebrew, you understand what I'm saying? You have to piece together the picture. But when you come to Proverbs 31, Solomon has, or Shlomo, or King Lemuel has already painted the picture for you. And for many who don't go into the Hebraic text, it's like, aha, you know what I'm saying? Here it is, all put together. I ain't got to do no work. Just roll on over here and start spouting off. This is all the stuff you need to do. And so this is why oftentimes it's attractive for people because, like you said, if you go into Genesis, if you don't really speak Hebrew and you're not breaking down the words, you don't know what an Azir Kanibdo is supposed to do. If you don't break down the keva or the female, you don't know what that entails. And a lot of people are not going to tell you. And so you get little glimpses of Deborah here and Yael there and Huldah there, but it's not giving you enough to go on. And when you get to Proverbs 31, it's like, okay, this is it all in one place. And so, just on the other side, because I know you say you're shocked, on the other side of it, based on who has been giving us, because a lot of what we have we got it from our oppressors. A lot of our understanding and the mentality that we got it from our oppressors, because the truth is, and it's not an excuse, everything was taken from us on the other side of town. But intrinsically, as I want to talk about some of the things that the Proverbs 31 woman is talking about, intrinsically, this strength of the melanated woman, even in all her debasement, even in all the spaces that the Most High have humbled her, intrinsically, she knows that I gotta push on through. And so that's the area that I study most, and I get most excited about is the area of actual slavery and the things that have happened in slavery, and this thought process of on the Western front, the Caribbean, South America, North America, this thought of the strong black woman here is what I began to investigate. And when you look at some of the things that Proverbs 31 is saying on the good side, she still maintained it to a certain degree on the other side, that survival, even without being provided the things that she needs. So she comes out a bit more rough, a bit more, a bit more loud, a bit more defiant. She comes out in all these ways because she's still tapping into that Kayel. She's still tapping into that strength because she's still at war. And I think a lot of people miss that, and they just look at her veneer, they look at her outside, and they say, well, you're just a terrible person. And not looking at the fact that all of these qualities that the Most High put within her it's like an on and off button. And if it doesn't get turned off, then she keeps going and going and going and going. And the good thing now becomes the bad thing. And so that may be a conversation for another day. But like I said, it's something that I noticed triggered a lot of people on social media, because the strong black woman, so-called, or the independent black woman is the one they show you on TV. It's the one that Tyler Perry imitates. It's the one that Martin Lawrence does the skits on. It's the one that everybody likes to jeer and mock, but they're not really telling you the real story about why and how she became who she is. And so I'll let Sister Mayanah, because y'all know once I get on this topic, it's a wrap. I'm going to let Sister Mayanah get the mic, and then we're going to check on the audience.
One of the things that we're listening to and we're finding in the conversation is that Proverbs 31 has been used as, the 31st proverb has been used as a crutch, a sort of checklist of what biblical femininity looks like. And as Akwetey astutely pointed out, that this is very, very far into the study to first have this inkling. And the idea that the text does not provide demonstratively what the woman has contributed to the culture, how she's represented in the culture, is not due to a oversight in the text, but rather a lethargic approach to the scholarship, to the reading of the text, because there's ample example. But the fact is that we don't look at it, we're not trained to look at it, we're not encouraged to look at those things. We are fed a prescribed narrative about our ancestresses. We are told what to take from Sarah and what not to take from her, what to take from Rivka, what to take from Leah, what to take from Raquel, what to take from what to take from Hannah, what to look at and what not to look at. Oh, look at how submissive she was, and then done with it. Oh, look at how she didn't, whatever, is the point. And we're read these texts from a particular lens, and we're not encouraged to look past those things or to look for those things that are relevant to womanhood. Because the men are, and I submit for consideration that the men aren't looking at that, because the men understand and are looking to find themselves in the text. So they are studying that way. Consequently, women learn to and are equipped to identify men in the text, because it's the men we're taught, and the men are teaching. And so the women know Dawid, the women know Yaakov, the women know Solomon, the women know what they want to know about Judah, and all of these other men, Abraham, all of these other men. But we don't know about what the women were doing. The women were completely shocked, for example, completely shocked to find that a woman was responsible, that is credited with building not one, not two, but 3 cities, one of which she named after herself. That's in the text. Parenthetically, but in the text. But because it's parenthetical, it's a nugget. You have to actually study to find it. For decades, women were taught that the scriptures do not speak of women in terms of queens. But then if you actually read the text, when Israel decided to go into this pagan idea of having a mortal king, we took with it all of the accoutrements of this thought. We didn't say we just want a king and we left it alone. This was a pagan idea. We said we wanted to be like the other kids and we want to be like them. And so we took everything that they had set up because we were adopting their idea. That would include how they viewed their spouses. Someone mentioned already that if there was a king, I believe it was Emunah, that if there was a king, the woman would have been understood as a queen. And when we read these passages about the wives of these kings, she's not called a princess, she's called their queen. So whether or not this is good doesn't detract from the fact that this is a thought that was adopted. This is the adopted thought. And so we find that women are doing things. Women are summoning generals to get answers, and they're coming. They're not saying, get your husband, I don't respond to you, woman. No. She's like, get your general, I need to know what's going on. And he came. When Deborah summoned Barak, he came. These are the things that happened. They didn't have these issues, which is what Onleilove was alluding to earlier. They didn't have these issues about communicating with the woman. They didn't separate her having a uterus from her having some value. The fact that wisdom, the fact that the Torah, the fact that the soul, the fact that the earth are all spoken of in terms of the feminine principle speaks to the fact that Yisrael did not have any kind of inherent rejection of the merit and value and the contribution of women or of the feminine principle. There was no fear, disdain, or disgust with her. And so I think we need to start to reevaluate and start to completely and fully reject all of this other thought that has influenced. Socrates is what influenced, am I correct with that? Aristotle and Plato is what's informing this, quote, Western mindset that everyone flings around as the most vile of thoughts, and yet they bring it up and wave it around as the same ideas which are coming from the same place. So I think these things need to be interrogated. They need to be fully reevaluated so that we can go into a space of healing, going into a space of real scholarship, and so that we can have a real reclamation of our heritage, if that's truly our objective.
And before we go to the callers, I just wanted to add one point, is that we see wisdom is something that we're directed to search for because it's hidden. And the woman within the Torah and within the scriptures, her role is hidden, like wisdom. So just because something is hidden doesn't mean it's less than. Actually, we usually hide what is most valuable, or we talk about the trump card. When a certain part of the battle gets really comfortable, you throw out the trump card. So I wanted to just lift that up. And I also wanted to remind people that throughout scriptures, again, I think there is the literal interpretation, the allegorical interpretation, but I have seen many examples of women who have done things that have been done in Proverbs 31. And with the exportation of a particular type of Christianity, I have encountered women of all cultures, including women from Nigeria and Ghana and different places, who have had this burden placed on them, maybe within the younger generation if they've encountered an evangelical type of Christianity. But I also wanted to have us look at these two women, the woman of wisdom and the foolish woman, or the woman in the wilderness clothed with the sun and the whore of Babylon, that there are always two choices, foolishness and wisdom. And many times we're uplifting the weak women we see in various cultures, not realizing that weak people are manipulative. So I've had to be around many different types of women, not just the African-American woman. And sometimes we're saying certain traits are virtuous, which are actually wicked. And we're looking at women who may feel weak, who are using manipulation in their relations with men, and we're calling that virtuous, because a weak person will always have to manipulate, and that's what Jezebel did. So I just wanted to offer that there's always these two choices that we're being presented with, and sadly, I think many Hebrew women are being burdened with the image of womanhood that would be very weak, and that would actually lead to us having more manipulation versus cooperation in our relationships. So I'll relinquish to Michael.
All right. Excellently stated there, Sister Onleilove. I could go off on that one for some time now, but for the sake of conversation as well as time, we're going to check on the audience. I definitely want to thank you for that, because this is something that is happening in this space and time. Maybe we can revisit it after we check on the audience. Brother Sal, are you there?
All right, family. It's time for your questions and your comments. I see we have one or two people that press number one. Again, if you want to chime in, you're listening on social media. If you're listening on Blog Talk, all you got to do to ask a question is dial that number, 319-527-6239. You can call in via phone or via Skype. Let's go to the first caller. Let's go to 954-683. You're live in the air.
Hey, Sal, it's Messenger of Truth calling. Came in pretty late. Didn't come in till like sometime after the 40th minute. But for me, whenever I even entertain Proverbs 31, I'm always thinking about my own mother. To me, she is the OPAC and the epitome of a virtuous woman. It's like in my head, there's no one above her. You know, she's been faithful to my father. They've been married for as long as I've been living, 40 plus years. She's been faithful to myself, and I was a knucklehead. I mean, I've made my parents cry so many times it's not even funny. But she never gave up on me. My father never gave up on me either. So, you know, she's been faithful to me. She's been faithful to my sister. She's been faithful to the entire family. You know, when my grandmother died, my mom is the one who basically took the reins and became the matriarch of the family. Even the knuckleheaded members of the family, she's always been there for everybody. Helped us through college. You know, whenever we're in trouble, she's always giving to people. She's never cursed. She doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke. She respects authority. She's managed the finances of the house, you know, to the point that her and my father can now, or they have retired because of that. She dresses moderately. She's never dressed as a whore or a hooker, anything like that. You know, she truly represents the family name. She doesn't misrepresent us. She doesn't misrepresent the last name at all. When people mention my mother, they know they're talking about a good woman. And that's what she's known to be because of her personality. So a virtuous woman is actually known to be a virtuous woman. She doesn't murmur. She doesn't talk bad about people. She endures hard times with patience. And my father, just like the scriptures say, a husband will glorify that wife. They will talk good about that wife. My father's always talked good about my mom. Same thing with my sister and I. Same thing with the grandkids. You know, she's always been there for her grandkids. She's given out of her own pocket. And by the way, my mother's a Christian. She's given out of her own pocket when the church couldn't give. When the church says, I don't have any money to help this person, my mom's going into her own pocket and giving to people. And sometimes she's been taken advantage of and laughed at after she helped. But she doesn't murmur. She just takes the pain and keeps on trucking. But the most important thing about my mother being a virtuous woman is she always, and I mean she always, would say to my sister and I, remember the Lord. Remember the Lord. When I was out sinning, drinking, cussing, smoking, doing everything, she used to say it so much she used to irritate me. But I'm glad she did. Because she would always say, remember the Lord. So a virtuous woman doesn't just do good things. She also puts God first in the life of her family, in the life of her children, and in the life of her grandchildren. And that's exactly what my mother has done. Solomon says, who can find a virtuous woman? Solomon had almost 1,000 playthings, wives and concubines. But he's basically saying that she's rare. So I just wanted to share that. Yes, my mom, she's a Christian woman, but whenever I talk about a virtuous woman, I can't think of anyone above my own mother.
I want to thank the caller for sharing the testimony of his mother, and just you can hear the endearing thoughts of his mother, the respect and the honor of his mother. So, again, for those who have just joined us and you would like to share your thoughts on this conversation as it relates to Proverbs 31, some say she doesn't exist. We just heard from a caller who says she does exist, and she happens to be his mother. So, you know, again, can we take that what is the scriptures are here for our reproof and our learning and for testimonies? And so, you know, having these conversations can help to broaden our thought processes on the matter. So once again, caller, thank you definitely for calling in and letting your voice be heard. Brother Sal, feel free to let us know if we have any other callers on the line.
All right, family. Like I said, let your voice be heard. You know that number, 319-527-6239. Right about now, nobody else pressed number 1 at this time. But again, as soon as somebody pressed number 1, I'm going to let you guys know. Continue the dialogue.
All right. Since we had the caller, the caller just took me right into one of the questions I was going to ask Brother Akwetey. In light of you thinking or saying that the proverb is not necessarily of a woman but Torah, what aspects of it do you think are applicable to women? What aspects, because I know you said like the entirety of it may be a bit burdensome, but what aspects of Proverbs 31 do you feel are beneficial? Brother Akwetey, the mic is yours.
All right, question, radio check.
Microphone.
Yeah, radio check, brother. Hello. All right, Akwetey, you have some technical issues, brother. You on the line?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
You breaking up.
Okay, hang on. Back.
All right, I think you said he's going to call back. Yeah, call back in. Maybe there'll be a better reception. Let's call back in.
Okay.
All right.
Sister, we could go to Sister Mayanah. Let us know her thoughts on if it is allegorical and it is a poem, but there's so much information. Like, for instance, the thought that the woman shouldn't be industrious, and you trying to be an independent woman and you want your own money because you don't want to bow down, but yet still we see industry and agency in the independent woman. Is that the part that's the poetry, or is that the part that could be applicable to helping to build up the household? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a good question, and I could really do a lot with it. But because Onleilove said that she is limited in her time, I would like to give her the opportunity to expound on her thought and give her as much time as possible, and I'll follow up behind her.
That's so nice, Sister Matt. Home team, Sister Mayanah. That's what's up, Sister Onleilove. What are your thoughts?
Actually, Sister Mayanah, I don't mind. I can stay in a little while because I would like to hear you expound on the question, and then I'll follow up. But thank you so much.
Okay, fair enough. Well, with regard to the latter portion, which I did share with the listening audience, is written in the format of an acrostic poem. It's clear that this is an ode, and it is written in the feminine, through the feminine principle, whether it is by King Lemuel, who may or may not have been Solomon, or someone else. The idea is that all of these traits are attributed in the feminine. And agreed that because of our current climate, because of our historical context, there is the idea that when the woman is working or the woman is engaged in some type of active participation in her own agency or contributing in spaces that men feel belong to them, there is this kind of animosity that it gets attached to her, this idea that she should not be operating on her own or using her own intelligence to create strategies to help the home or to economize, work with the economy of this domestic sphere. The idea that the woman could have a domain becomes something that the man immediately shrivels up against because it's a competing thought to what they have been told reifies their masculine space, that the masculine space has to be uncontested. And so this idea, whether real or imagined, begins to push against the sturdiness or stability of the masculine construct that they have concocted for themselves. So there is some of that. But the fact is that the woman has always been an active part or an active participant in all of the features of our culture with the definite exception of the priesthood. The woman has functioned in some capacity in the culture. And what we need to do is move away from the idea that that's not okay and that somehow challenges or jeopardizes their role or their space or their authority in their space. And with that, I'll push it over to Onleilove to build from there.
So I think there is definitely a lot that we need to examine, and I think that there is a lot for the Hebrew woman here because there seems to be a campaign to keep a lot of us on the level of foolish women. And if women are being compared to Torah, or the Torah is being compared to a woman, or even the Hebraic scholar Diana Dye compares the proverb of a wise woman builds her house, but a foolish woman tears it down, to even the building of the temple and the tearing down of the temple. If we are being compared to mighty warriors, to Etzer Kenedos, which, again, that term Etzer is only used again in our biblical passage when Yah is saving Israel from utter destruction. If we see these comparisons, then we are to be wise women. We are to be strong women, but of course everything is in balance. My concern in the Hebrew community is that, again, we are taking Greco-Roman ideas and just putting a head wrap and fringes on them. And the Torah tells us, envy not your oppressor. But I think sometimes we're trying to repair our broken male and female relationships, and whether your Hebrew people have gone through the transatlantic slave trade, the trans-Saharan slave trade, which impacted East Africa, or colonialism, which impacted all of Africa, the Caribbean. We have broken male and female relations, or man and woman relations, rather. And we're trying to repair these broken relations using the tools of the oppressor. But the Torah says to envy not the way of your oppressor. Again, if you're interpreting the scripture through maybe St. Augustine, who was a black man, and his mother, St. Monica, was so African identified, when she died, she told him, take her bones back to Africa. He was a black man, or maybe a biracial man with a Roman father, but he had a lot of uncomfort with women in his heart. But he set up a lot of the biblical interpretation and how we do things in the churches, and sadly, many people come to the Hebrew side of things, and we're still doing things like the church. We still have those Greco-Roman beliefs, but we're just dressing them up. And so we really have to be mindful that the battle that we're in, we cannot have half the team being foolish and weak. We just can't. And we have to think about our particular culture and what we saw. We see Rebecca making sure that the birthright does not go to Esau, because she knew, the Most High communicated to her from the womb what manner of children she was dealing with. And where would we be if the birthright would have went to Esau? We see Sarah discerning that Hagar and Ishmael were getting a little bit out of hand. We see, all of these examples. We see Ruth and Naomi making sure that the bloodline continues. But if they were taught as Hebrew women what most of us are taught today, they would not have even stepped out. Hadassah, better known as Esther, would not have even, fasted and went to the king to request and save our people's lives. Miriam and Moses, Moses' mother and Miriam would not have snuck and breastfed him and made sure that he grew up knowing who he was, and the Pharaoh's wife wouldn't have even taken him if they were being taught the lessons that we're being taught today about Hebrew womanhood. Our people would not even be here. And so I'm not saying this to promote feminism. I'm not a feminist. I'm not saying this to promote the destruction of families. So if we come to the scriptures looking at them as only through the eyes of slavery and in the last 500 years of our culture, and we cannot do that again. Are we trying to be liberated in Yah so we can be just like our oppressors? Or are we trying to be a higher level of man and woman, a Hebrew man and woman, so we can teach the nations about justice? Because right now, our relations don't have justice, and this hatred of the black, melanated, Hebrew, whatever you want to call it, woman, is very almost satanic, and that we hate the womb that will produce more Hebrew people. And there has to be some speaking out against it, because many sisters don't want to come into the truth of who they are because they do not want to be in an environment where they are so oppressed that they're not even human beings. We have people teaching that, we can't even have a relationship with the Most High except through a man, as if a man is Yahshua. So I relinquish the mic.
Boy, Sister Onleilove dropped some. That's like a whole nother show, That's a whole nother show because, as you just stated, the conversation here and many other places that the hatred, the indifference, the resentment, the bad blood, the animosity, whatever you want to call it, is thick. And the scriptures are being interpreted through that thought process, layered with a little bit of oppressor, a whole lot of oppressor. And then we come to this where we can't move because you've paralyzed one side of the unit. And so it becomes counterintuitive, counterproductive, and these are the things that we need to speak about. When you hear about what has happened and how we've come here, like you said, not only have a lot of sisters don't want to come, I've seen many in my day run. I mean, they heard, like they would say in the Caribbean, like you heard news, like you are running away from, because it wasn't the Most High that you saw, it wasn't the Spirit of the Most High. And again, I think that's another conversation because it goes into a culture that, let's say, somebody who has not been exposed to this side of the awakening would not really understand that, the depth of it, or why or how someone could turn someone out of the way. But the Torah tells you about being stumbling blocks to the blind. And those who are returning, those of us who weren't taught this from the womb and who are waking up and the Most High is drawing them out of the multitude and returning, and we have many people becoming stumbling blocks because of their own pain, their own hurt, their own indifference. It becomes a great problem, and that's kind of where we are. As you said, that's kind of, if you just sit long enough, it don't even really got to be that long. But if you just sit long enough, you'll begin to observe a very strange phenomenon in the awakening Israel of the Western diaspora, let me just say that. So, again, Sister Onleilove said a lot of very interesting things. And another thing that she said I want to touch on, and we did a show before. It was called Triggering a Response, the F word. Because when you begin to speak up for a segment that has been suppressed, oppressed, and depressed, all of a sudden now you get to be branded as a feminist. You get to be branded as somebody that, no one wants to talk to because you're speaking about rights that are being robbed. But if we look all throughout the Torah, and the Tanakh, one of the issues that the Creator had with Israel is that you did not speak up for the rights of those who were the fatherless, the motherless, the widow, the poor, the orphan. So those who are in a space where you're supposed to be protecting their rights as a masculine principle, and you're robbing their rights, not all but many, and you are exploiting them, and then someone comes along and speaks up, then there's a way in which to silence that individual by calling them a nasty, dirty name that's unwarranted, in order to say, be quiet. That's a level of unrighteousness. And that is something that, regardless of whether we think we're on social media or we're in the streets or wherever, the Creator is watching us. So if we think that just knowing that you're Israel is enough, it's not. Because it's a little secret. Our foreparents knew who they were. Like Judah knew he was Judah, and Levi knew they were Levi. That didn't matter. They had the temple. They had the prophets. They had the priests. They had lineage that we read in Chronicles and the Book of Numbers. And they knew who their daddies were. It didn't matter. Wickedness is wickedness. And so I'm going to check on Brother Sal. We're going to check on Akwetey. Not sure what's going on over there. But we're going to check on Brother Sal to see if anybody, because I wanted to say that because for some reason we think just the knowledge of, I'm waking up, that's sufficient. It's not sufficient. That's like entry level. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That's actually prereq. It's not even, that's before, you get prereq before you can actually get into the class. That's prereq. Mm-hmm. That you didn't do anything yet. You know what I'm saying? You didn't do anything yet. And so, definitely. Brother Sal, what's going on with you? Is everything all right? Is anybody on the phone lines? Feel free to let us know.
Yeah, I'm actually speaking to Akwetey behind the scenes. He's having problems going into the show. However, he's going to try to use Skype to call in. He's going to try to use the Skype. Once he calls in, I'll let you know. Again, people, this is your time. If you have any questions or comments, you know that number, 319-527-6239. Is a strong black woman a Proverbs 31 woman? It's the topic. So if you're already on the phone line, you can press number 1, or if you're on social media, you have to dial that number to chime in. But yeah, you can go ahead.
All right. So I want to just bring it a little bit further up to today as it relates to why this thought of the strong woman, which we know Hebraically, Kayel, speaks about strength. And so one of the brothers went on the particular post, he was like, Emunah, that was a setup. I'm like, only for those who don't study. You know what I'm saying? So in Kayel itself is the answer. And so if we're looking at Proverbs 31, however we're looking at it, when you look at Kayel throughout the text and put it into context, there goes the answer. But today, you know, through history and time, and I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Sister Mayanah, through history and time, this thought process changes and takes on different connotations, different meanings, and when people hear it, they may not see the industrious housewife who's honored by her family and her husband. They may see loudmouth, you know, Bonita Applebone on the corner, you know, just wagging her finger and snapping her neck, and that person. They don't see strong as Proverbs 31. Strong is now the woman who doesn't need a man. That's what somebody actually said to me. The woman who doesn't need a man, who's in a blonde wig, who's an independent woman, and she can do what she wants. What are your thoughts? Is that a real concern, Sister Mayanah? Is that something that we can't dismiss to say that the reality is, although we can talk about Hebraic to today, there is a gap. There is a divide between the two concepts. What are your thoughts?
Regarding the reimagining of the strength of the melanated woman as the crude and vile, blonde, weave-wearing, dyed melanated woman, this is an image that has been, again, adopted by a certain segment of women, and this did not occur, like this didn't fall from the sky. This was a process. These women they received something, they accepted something, they internalized something, and became this image of disgust and revile. But the melanated woman in her space, where she is being sufficient, where she is being proficient, where she is being a contributing member of her culture and society, this woman is also kind of ushered into this category, along with the ratchet and the broken and the woman who has adopted all of these other maladaptive means of looking for acceptance. And that's one of the things that we have to remember, that even this woman that is blonde and loud and misbehaving, she's looking for acceptance. The idea, and we have to listen to the language, and this may bother those who are not interested in listening to the language, but the language here is I don't need. When something is needed, there's a dependency. Inside of this thought, there's the idea that if I don't have, I won't survive. So for a people or a segment of a people that historically has not been able to depend, it is a matter of self-preservation to say, I can't be dependent, because if I become dependent, children won't eat, or I won't eat, or I won't be able to do. Now, the fact that this is not what the woman should be thinking is not relevant to the reality. If the historical reality is that when I looked for you, you weren't there, and so now I can't depend on you. I don't need you. You've made yourself someone that I can't need, that I can't sit back and say, I'm not worried because he will save me. I can't think that about you. So this is something that and these are the conversations that we have with women, because there is part of the repairing is having the relationship. We're talking about the male and female relationship, where we can have this interdependency again, where we can rebuild these issues of trust, because trust is broken. And very often, like you said, this F word, this idea of feminism, and that this adopted idea from a foreign culture, this alien culture, we've allowed these things to intrude upon what we need for our own communities, and to some extent that is true. But the idea that we had complete and whole families before this thought isn't true. And we have to stop reimagining the facts, and we have to stop saying that this is the element, that the women were the ones that abandoned us, and they went and they did this thing, and now they're all blonde hair for no reason because they want to be like the blonde woman, and ignore the fact that during the same exact period where there was this ostensible surge of melanated pride, there were also men of melanated persuasion in droves saying, I want to be with the European woman. And so the melanated woman is saying, is picking up on those cues. It's very hard to listen to the men say, Genesis 3:16, all day long, you are going to desire me, and then forget that she's desiring to please you, and you're saying this is what pleases me. And so when she goes to emulate what you said pleases you, now you're upset with her. And she's broken, and she's crazy, and she doesn't like herself. She had to change herself because you said you don't like her. And that's accountability. And for some reason, when we say accountability to certain men, not all men, but to certain men, a particular segment of men, when we say accountability, when we say responsibility, when we say there's your portion, there's a portion of this that belongs to you, we're bad guys. We don't want the man. The male is still. It's the woman you gave me. They're still in that space where the answer to accountability is no. It's the woman you gave me, and that is always going to be a problem. When wisdom cannot cry out, when wisdom cannot say you're hurting me, when the woman cannot say this is an issue, let's look at this. And the man says the only voice that has any value is mine. And this is the thing, when only one person is speaking, you're always going to be right. We have a proverb on that. The first man to his cause seems right until his neighbor comes to examine him. That's the wisdom of our ancestors. But we have a certain number of men that are determined to not only be first, but to be alone in a conversation.
All right, now. All right. Let's not be alone in the conversation, everybody. This is a community conversation. I want to thank you for tuning in. That was the voice of Sister Mayanah. This is the relationship challenge. So we're in this space. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure. I have not yet seen a long-running conversation between the masculine and feminine principles, respectively, shout out to Debate Talk for you, for the purpose of healing the rift and the divide. Not cursing out, not belittling, not throwing under the bus, but having honest conversations so that we can come to an understanding. So you got to, if you're not supporting Debate Talk for You and you're listening to Debate Talk for You right now, and this is a part of your conversation where you go in there every day and you're gaining some level of value, support Debate Talk for You. Brother Sal shares on social media. It's always under the links in the box. Send in your donations to Debate Talk for You. Brother Sal didn't even know I was going to do this. But, hey, this is 33 episodes. This is of this particular segment and 7 seasons of the Debate Talk for You. So, please, if you are if you're gleaning any value, you're sharing it, and it's something to make you go, then support the platform so that it could continue on. And, again, moving out of the space of arguing, debating, fighting, contention into the space of listening, because little do we know that listening to one another is a part of the healing process. Actually hearing what the other person is saying and responding to the questions and concerns that they have helps each other to know that I'm here, I understand you, and it's showing that love that we like to talk about all the time. So, once again, if you have anything to say, as long as you keep it clean and respectable and professional, we'll be glad to hear you. So I'm going to go to Brother Sal and see if we have any thoughts or any questions or any comments on social media. Brother Sal?
All right, so as usual, we look for people out there to press number 1. People out there listening to the show, but they're not pressing 1 at this time. All right, so, and of course, I guess Akwetey is having some major technical difficulties calling back in. So I guess, if you want to continue, you can continue. You have like 24 minutes on the air. You have 24 minutes on the air, so if people have any questions or comments, feel free to press number 1. But you can continue, guys. Ladies, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to...
sorry.
No, I was going to read...
Sister Onleilove?
No, go ahead, sis.
Oh, sorry. So I just wanted to touch on a comment Mayanah made because, again, with the child being a military term, when you have someone who's created as a mighty warrior or a woman of warfare or the Etzer Kenegdo, which is almost like not just a help. We have to realize when the King James Version of the Bible was translated, in that period in England, a helper was like an emergency responder, a firefighter, an ambulance worker, a 9/11 rescue worker. So when you have someone who is created and built and formed and fashioned to fight a war beside you or to help in a dire time of need, and they're hindered from doing that, there's going to be a lot of frustration, a lot of depression. But we also need to talk about this colorism in our community. Mayanah touched on it. We critique the out-of-line sisters, but they are trying to do whatever they can to get the attention. I've been studying colorism since 1999, and you can literally read a study by Dr. William Dougherty, who's a black man, who says, you can almost predict the marriage prospects based on color. That Villanova University did a study that showed darker-skinned women spend 12% longer time in prison than their lighter-skinned counterparts. The New York Times published a study that dark-skinned little girls of any race are suspended 3 times more than their lighter-skinned counterparts. So when you're growing up with this disdain because of who you are as a woman, and then you're created to help, but that help is rejected because of the texture of your hair, the color of your skin, the size of your mouth, and the size of your lips. A frustration develops. And I think when we're having these conversations about the role of the Hebrew woman, we also have to talk about the disdain for the body she's built in. And if you look at the scriptures, another poem or song attributed to Solomon is the Song of Solomon or the Song of Songs. And in chapter 1, verses 5 to 6, it says, "Do not look upon me because I am dark. I am dark and lovely," though most English Bibles will translate the Vav to "I am dark but lovely," but it is actually translated "I am dark and lovely." So again, I think the Bible, in the Torah especially, has all the answers for these issues we're struggling with. We just have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. But we should really talk about this issue of colorism and almost a disdain for those who can make more Hebrew children or more melanated children especially.
Thank you for that, Sister Onleilove. That, like I said, that's a whole nother topic there. That's going into the, as you said, that's going into the psychology, that's going into the history, that's going into the mentality of the men as well as the women. And as Sister Mayanah said, and you said as well, that this is a reaction, it's a response. And oftentimes when that's being said, it's being rejected by the masculine principle, not all but some, that she's actually responding to you. And then when you go into history, not a lot of people like to go there. You know what I'm saying? Mm. When you go into the history of what the melanated, what Israel, let me just say, what Israel have done over the generations, the history, even if you go into biblical history, you see in the time of Ezra that a number of foreign women before we even got here, a number of men took foreign women onto themselves. So this desire for foreign women has started a long time before we got to the Western Hemisphere. And it persists even on to this day. So much so till Ezra's like, you're going to have to get rid of them because where you're going, and that goes back to what we're talking about the value of the Hebrew. I think Mayanah shared it sometime this week. Are you a Hebrew wife or the wife of a Hebrew? And for some reason or another, the value of a daughter growing up and inculcated with Torah and understanding who she is, it's not as valued as it is she pleases me well. This was the conversation that Samson's parents had with him, and we brought this out on the show some time ago. Samson's parents his mother had to ask, is there never a daughter of the children of Israel? And he says, nah, she pleases me well. So he wanted to go for the Philistine. So this is again is getting into another area that sometimes our brothers get a bit touchy on, and this is why, for this reason, for me, I like when they're present. So it's not that we're speaking about you, we're actually speaking to you. But I wanted to, because sometimes that could also make the defenses go up when it's really nothing to defend. It's really to say, is it true, is it not true, and how can we deal with it? So speaking of true and not true, I'm going to throw something out there. A brother said this statement. He said, strong black woman usually symbolizes a woman that doesn't want or need a man and has a child out of wedlock. So I don't know how all of those went together, but in his mind, in his estimation, this strong black woman doesn't want or need a man, and she has children out of wedlock. Again, this is not the Proverbs 31 woman, but this is today's thought process of the strong black woman. And we're going to wind down because of the technical difficulties and XYZ. But let me get your thoughts on that, and then we're going to come around one more time for the closing statements if we don't have anybody on the line. But what are your thoughts on that, Sister Mayanah? How did she become synonymous with children out of wedlock?
Well, it's a convenient narrative that is in line with the idea that all of the culpability lies on her. So this, just in the language, she is the one that has children out of wedlock. Who didn't marry her? Okay, it's not like this is not a status that she picked up at Target. This is something that happened to her. The male that she procreated with did not marry her. That's what makes her unwed and a mother. There's also this idea that women are single mothers. For every single mother, there's a father that is a single father. There's this idea that there are fatherless children. This is a misnomer that needs to stop. All of these children have fathers. Whether or not the fathers are present, whether or not the fathers are active, there's a whole gamut of conversations that can surround that. But no child has come into creation, has come to fruition without there being a father. This is an idea we understand when we are confronted with the phrase, the seed of the man. So it's always this idea of it's the masculine principle is only present when we're talking about the seed, but when we're talking about the fruit, the fruit is the woman's problem, and that has to stop. This idea of there being a separate accountability. Okay, this is the masculine and feminine, the male and the female came together and created. They have a shared responsibility. There's if you had privy to our green room conversations, you would hear some of the clever things that pass between Emunah and I. And so we concluded that together that there's the idea that the men are fine when it comes to the fame, but they will call for the woman when it comes for the blame. The fame they will accept on their own. The fame belongs to them. The nation belongs to them. The seed belongs to them. All things great belong to the men. But when it comes time for the blame, then they will call the woman. Oh, but she did it too. Or the woman is at fault here. The woman is at fault there. But when it comes to the glory of Israel, that doesn't belong to her. She did nothing to contribute to that. And then the detail of it being your mother that advocated for you over Esau. That detail gets buried. We don't have that conversation. We don't have the conversations of all of your mothers that advocated for you. We don't have the conversations of all of the women that protected you. We talk about, for example, when we talk about Miriam, we talk about when she was punished or when she had to face the judgment of the Creator. We talk about her then. But we don't talk about when it came time to watch Moshe and to look over his safety and to call for his own mother. That narrative doesn't get repeated for Miriam. You don't hear that emphasized. We hear emphasized that she spoke against him. Why is that? Why do the men want to bring that to our remembrance? We'll probably mention this again, but Emunah and I in a conversation room we're talking about that the male is a car. He is to remember. But why is this what he remembers? This is what he wants to remind us of, not the things that we were good about or the ways that we were good to him, but they have buried deep in their souls the remembrance of the ways in which we betrayed or they feel betrayed by us, and they don't remember the things that they have done. And this is not to say that I want them to be blamed more or that we need to go out and light our torches and set all the men on fire, but instead that we have to first come to an honest place and say, this is my portion, this is your portion. Acknowledge our portions, repent of our participation in the destruction of our families, and then come back together, reclaim, rebuild, and do the business of having sustainable families. Because it's his fault, it's her fault, has gotten us nowhere. And we're going to, the lesson that we do not learn, we are doomed to repeat. This is the wisdom of the ancients.
All right, you know what that means. We actually have a caller standing by, so whenever you guys ready, ladies are ready, let me know. Ladies, let me know when you want me to take the next caller.
All right, go ahead, Brother Sal, go ahead.
All right, so let's go to the Skype caller. Yeah, you on the line?
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom, Sai. Shalom, sisters. How y'all doing?
Shalom, brother. We're doing well.
All right. Appreciate y'all with this convo tonight. I would have been calling in earlier, but taking care of my wife right now.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, she.
That's good.
We expecting our first little king, but she going through it with this preeclampsia. So I'm just doing everything I can to take care of her.
Oh.
But no, don't say that. It's gonna work out. We not.
That's right.
You know, we don't do the around here. We take it as it comes, and we know the Most High he got a plan. But I just wanted to take I know Akwetey was on, and I don't know what happened, but just try to bring a little masculine point of view to this. And I want to say first, like, I ain't never really been a part of none of these camps or nothing like that, so I don't really know what's going on, and I haven't really been deep in the community long enough to understand, but I do, just in sitting back for the last couple of years, watching and listening, I see this oppression or this, I guess, this fight between the masculine and feminine energy. And the more you study Torah, you see that it should be a balance, right? So the first thing I want to say is, I appreciate you sisters for doing this, but I also would ask that y'all start to look at things from a perspective of what the oppressor has also done to the men of our community, right? While and I'll just say us, I don't consider myself to be oppressive. I grew up in a single mother home, so my mom took care of all of us. My aunts took care of all of us because we didn't have no fathers around. But on the flip side too, there's this, especially when you get to your 20s, like between your 20s and your 30s for a man, we won't admit it, but there's this hard thing of trying to figure it out, right? So a lot of these men that are going so hard on the women, they trying to figure it out, and they too proud to say, like, okay, I was wrong in this area, or they went so hard that they can't come back and I guess get off of that. So, for future, in order for all of us to grow, we got to realize that all of us have been oppressed, right? So, in psychology, Freud had this thing where he said that women had what we would call, and I know it's a family show, but it was envy of the masculine body part, right? And then there was another guy that came. This dude was Adler, and he was talking about how anybody that had that view, he was calling that like masculine, basically like masculine oppression or something like that. I forgot the other word. But what we're going through is us trying to come out of this, right? And so when you're dealing with the man and the woman in our response in Israel to our oppression, we need to deal with what the oppressor has done to us. I heard y'all talk about it a lot, the Greek construct that has been placed on us. So it's hard for us to come out of it, just like it's hard for the woman to come out of it. So and I want to hear what y'all think about it, but just going forward, kind of, remember that y'all was created to be a helpmeet. So that means that we needed help in the first place, right? So there is a balance for all of us to find, and I think we can grow from there. And I just want to say too, I'm sorry, because when I hear y'all talk a lot, it seems like or at least you're hearing about a lot of women that are oppressed. And so I don't understand what's going on, but I do want to speak from a psychological perspective of you guys are doing right by looking for your empowerment, because this is the way to overcome it. But with that, just, don't let anybody, I guess, keep y'all from doing it, but also don't get so far off that you feel like you always got to be defensive, because some of us are just trying to learn, and we may put our foot in our mouth, and we need for y'all to work with us and help us grow, just like hopefully we can do the same for y'all.
All right. I want to thank you, Paul. I want to thank you for calling in and letting your voice be heard, and letting the masculine principle be present in the conversation and putting forth your thought processes. And as you said, yes, there's a balance in correcting that you can begin to overcorrect. And then now that creates another imbalance on the other side. And so I definitely that what you've just said. There's so much in this space that it's very complex. It's very difficult to approach it at any one direction. I mean, all of it is a result of disobedience to the Creator. Let me just say that first and foremost. You know what I'm saying? Masculine, feminine, baby, grown adult. All of it is an offshoot of disobedience to the Creator. But as a returning, some people may think that the conversation is for personal affliction, and that's not the case. A lot of people come forward with their own affliction, people who feel as though they don't have any voice. And the Torah speaks about being a voice for the voiceless, you know what I'm saying, and speaking out against the oppression for those who can't speak out for themselves, or who may be ashamed, or who have been browbeaten. So a lot of the energy and effort that you hear is on behalf of those who can't speak for themselves. But with that said, I do understand, I would say personally, and invest a lot of time, energy, and effort into looking at not only what happened to the female, but what also happened to the masculine principle in this breaking process within slavery. But what I find is that we don't want to look at it ourselves as a community and as a collective. And so one individual or two individuals going into the space and looking at it, if we don't face it for ourselves, this is where this pride comes in. This is where our haughtiness comes in. This is where the need to suppress the other principle comes in, whether it be male to female, female to male, so that we can feel like we're greater, we're better than. And this has just been, in my experience in tenure within the nation, the quote awakened nation, is this thought process of oppressing the other principle so that they can feel a bit. And I would have to say it's the masculine principle who has been doing it. It's the masculine principle who's been teaching on the street corners, who's been on the YouTube, who's been, spinning these doctrines, who's been doing the majority of what we're seeing now. And then you have people saying, well, where are the women? You know what I'm saying? Where are you
Right.
guys? And are you okay with this? And so there's been an emergence lately of women saying, no, we're here, and we're not in agreement to all that's going on. And so for some, it may take, it may be a bit much, like, wow, why are they going so hard? Why they, and it's not that, I want to be in the street running up and down and doing all these things, but it's been for so long. It's been for so long, so much has been said, so much damage has happened, so many families have been broken, and the families who are not broken, who are not jacked up, you don't really hear from them. So it creates this imbalance in society. When someone looks up Hebrew Israelite, they're not going to see necessarily debate talk for you. They're going to see some people who say, shut up and sit down and read. You know what I mean? And so this is kind of what we're up against at this space and time. Unfortunately, it took us a long time to begin to speak as people who are saying, hey, we're more level-headed than that. That's not the full representation of the male or the female. And so that's just my thoughts. I want to definitely thank you, and I pray that, the Most High be with you and your wife at this time as you come through the pregnancy, and may the Most High allow the child to be delivered safely, and, you guys can rejoice in the birth of a new baby in the earth. So definitely, prayers are with you.
Appreciate you, sister. And then one more thing, just for, I guess, couples that are new in relationships or whatever, I encourage y'all to read certain books. Like my wife and I read this book called Love and Respect, and it's not I guess technically a book by our people, but a lot of the principles in it are they translate. And one of the main things it was talking about is this cycle, right, where the woman is always asking for love and the man is asking for respect, and without feeling love, it's almost impossible for a woman to respect. And without feeling the respect, it's almost impossible for the man to feel the love. And what's needed in that circle is for both of them to kind of jump out of the circle and look at each other and say, regardless, I'm going to love you. And regardless, I'm going to respect you. And eventually what happens is it's not right away, but eventually what happens is there's a balance that happens, and it becomes equal. And now your relationship becomes this thing that the Most High planned it to be, this beautiful thing of balance, and where you can sit down and really talk to each other and really build and grow. So that's just one book. I mean, there's several books that we could, I'm sure everybody could recommend, but just if we can start reading and become more and more in tune with the Creator, reading our Word, but also getting those other sources that are going to speak to unity. I think we can grow in that respect as well. But thank you, sisters. Keep doing what y'all doing, and don't let these brothers discourage y'all. All right. So shalom. Thank you for that. For the well wishes on the family, and y'all keep doing what y'all doing.
All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you for calling in once again. If anybody would like to comment on what you heard from the caller, feel free to do so. Sister Onleilove, Sister Mayanah, feel free to let your voice be heard this time. And we're rounding down to the 10 o'clock hour. So I don't know what happened to Akwetey, but after you let your comments, if we don't have any more callers, then we'll go ahead and get some closing statements.
Well, first I want to say I just pray for the brother and his wife and their new little blessing that all goes well. And I have heard of the Love and Respect book, and I would agree that it's a good resource. I do think we have to keep our focus on the people who have inflicted injustice on us and not on each other. We have people in our community that are trying to rewrite our history, especially as it relates to slavery, somehow trying to make it seem like the black woman was in cahoots or that type of thing. And I think we need to realize that we both suffered and we both had wounds to our manhood and our womanhood. Sometimes we're so focused on each other that we're forgetting about, the enemies of Israel. And I will also say this, when you read in the Torah the discouraging of taking foreign wives, it's because usually with the taking of a foreign wife, is a taking of a foreign deity. And so, again, there's multiple levels. There's a spiritual level, there's a physical level, but I believe, first the spiritual and then the physical. So, if you feel this bitterness and, towards the one that's supposed to help you, who is putting that in your heart? Because if there are enemies of Israel, there are those who don't want the Hebrew man to have the help he needs, because when he has the help he needs, he's going to be able to, with the power of Yah, throw off the oppressors. So I would just offer that in the Love and Respect book. People can Google it, and it is very well known in different circles, and I do think it would help us to have to just learn about how to love the other person and how we can actually help each other. But also I would say, as Hebrew people, we need to make sure that the Torah is our first, and the Bible is our first and last authority, and not necessarily these gurus on YouTube and Facebook that are giving advice about black male and female relationships, because I see a lot of Hebrews listening to people like Tommy Sotomayor and all of that, and it's like he's not a believer. We have to look to the Torah to really understand Hebrew men and women, how we're supposed to relate.
Thank you for your thoughts, Sister Onleilove, and thank you for sticking with us all the way to the 10 o'clock hour as we wind down here on the Relationship Challenge Debate Talk for You. We're going to check on Sister Mayanah. Let us know if you would like to make any comments as it relates to what the caller has said. Feel free to do so at this time.
I would add to what Onleilove said about, first I would like to add my congratulations and well wishes to the caller and his emerging family. May the Most High bless and comfort and be with you in this time. To return to what Onleilove was saying about the Torah, the Tanakh, and our records as the primary source, I would have to agree with that. We have many, many, many examples of the male-female relationship in our records. That is not to say that we will not be able to glean anything from other sources. Anyone that has followed myself, Emunah, and others will be able to confirm that we are fairly well read, and we share some of our sources online and other areas on social media. But we see this issue of respect and deference and shared affection with Sarah and Abraham. We see the men speaking to their wives, consulting their wives, seeking for the wife to be on board instead of insisting upon their way with them. And so if we seek to emulate our ancestors and our oppressors, we can find many, many, many great examples there. The caller brought out Al Adler, and I'm not sure if he said that he supported or disagreed with Freud. It's true that they worked together. That some of us may be familiar with the theories of Freud, and that there was a psychosexual analysis that he had, that women envied men in their genital spaces. But Adler disagreed with him and said that this idea was formulated because men needed something to feel superior. So this thought that was constructed by Freud was extremely popular because it gave them something to feed this masculine need, to create something. But Adler disagreed. He felt that there was a behavioral reason, and so there was this kind of fraction. And he did not believe in the intrinsic or biological inferiority of women, which is some of the things that we hear. And this is again, this is a thought that was shared by a particular type of people in a particular era, Plato and Aristotle, to name two. but it's not a Hebraic thought. It is not the thought of many, many scholars. We will find this repeated. The caller brought out an amazing and excellent point that sometimes there appears to be an imbalance in how we address the issues in the relationship. I think that to the credit of this particular platform, we have from the beginning invited the males to be present so that there isn't that type of imbalance. Very often there's an equal number of men in the home panel, or sometimes they exceed, depending upon the topic and what how engaged they want to be. But we always invite that voice specifically because we do not want to have that kind of bias or imbalance, and we seek to maintain, and because we can't. It's true. We only understand our men through our experience of them, and to the extent that they are willing to be honest with us. So we ask the men to speak in their own voices, to react to us from their own spaces, because we cannot live as men. We can only live with them. And so this is why I'm deeply appreciative that the brother called in, as Emunah said, to represent that masculine perspective, because it's true that we need to hear it. The idea that we are unaware or insensitive to the fact that the men were beside us during slavery and during all manner of oppression is interesting, because it's actually said it's given to us in the reverse. It's always that they have gone through all of these oppressions and that women somehow escaped all of those things. I personally have not experienced a narrative where the women are saying that the men escaped oppression. But instead, the men keep telling us that the white men loved us, and even now that we can walk into spaces of employment with nothing but our vaginas and get the top tier positions, and just because we're women. And that there's a favoritism towards women, and that the men alone are marginalized and disenfranchised and disempowered. And so there's this, and because of that feeling, and I'm not saying that it's unwarranted or unmerited or something they've made up, but it's because they are so deeply aware of their reality that there's a sort of resentment to the women for not failing along with them in certain ways, and I think that we would entreat them to consider that in many cases the women had to have the children. So our impetus to survive was not just so that we would survive, but so that the children would survive with us. The men had the ability to leave the plantation, to go to work in different spaces, even after the sensible freedom. The men went to the north while the women stayed in the south with the children. The men went up north to get work. So they had freedom, and this, even not freedom in terms of equality or social freedom or all those things, but they had freedom of movement. And the women were tethered to the land and tethered to the family in a different way. And so rather than to say one had it worse than the other, I think that we have to be honest about, yes, there were differences, and to have empathy and sympathy and for one another. Our men went through a great deal and are continuing to go through a great deal, and the women are going through these things too. And rather than this being a competing space, this is an opportunity for compassion for one another. I don't think we don't want it to be a missed opportunity.
All right. Thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayanah. Again, that's a whole nother show. But indeed, history will sober you up. That's all I have to say. Like, real history will sober you up. As it relates to the latter part of what Sister Mayanah said, we're misremembering, or we were never taught a whole lot of stuff. And we're going off of, this is Emunah now, a lot of rhetoric. And then when you look for the evidence, it doesn't exist. And as she's saying, we're competing to say who had it worse. Well, you thought you had it bad, and there's no need for that. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't facilitate the healing process. But to accept and be willing to look at the data and the information and to say, you know what? Wow, okay. and to begin to understand one another's plight and one another's sorrow, because what we're experiencing basically, and then we're going to wrap it up, what we're experiencing is the inability or the hindrance to manifest your principle in the way in which the Most High said. And this is where the frustration and the resentment and the indifference comes in. The man wants to be able to provide. He wants to be able to protect. But the environment is hindering him from that, and he's resentful of that, and he turns towards the woman. She wants to be vulnerable. She wants to be secure. She wants to be your aid. She cannot do that because the provisions are not there, and she becomes indifferent. We have to be honest, and we have to say, yes, we have a common issue that's surrounding us, but it didn't just come from, because they jumped up and because they was over us. It comes from disobedience, and it comes from the fact that the Creator said it will be so. It was, and it still is. And so hopefully, again, these conversations can help us in this space. Like I said, it's a long, arduous process to go through the text and go through these stories. Hello? Go through the text and not you, the baby. She over here singing. Go through the text and go through these stories. It's painful to face the realities that our forefathers and our ancestors faced. But beyond these stories, beyond the pain, beyond the hurt, is healing and understanding, and hopefully a reconnecting to one another in a way that we can move forward. And so with that said, Brother Sal, if we don't have any more callers, go ahead and wind down for the night. I know we were speaking about, for those who be like, what in the world are they talking about? Well, we were supposed to be speaking about the strong black woman. Is she the Proverbs 31 woman, and how does it relate? We started off in the Hebraic text, and we worked our way down into modern day and how people perceive the strong, so-called strong black woman today, and how she's taken on a negative connotation historically. And so one more thing I would say that was it last year? Yana Van Zandt did a show saying that the strong black woman or the angry black woman is kind of like, the bipolar sister of the strong black woman is a myth, right? And so, I have my thoughts on that, because to deny the reality that you have a reason to be angry, or that you had a reason that you needed to be stronger than usual, is to kind of deny the reality of our experience. And so that's where a lot of people are, that this terminology is a trigger for us. And it's a space that, if we take a minute to stop trying to, deface one another and put one another down, we can actually begin to understand each other's plight. So with that said, if anybody has anything else to say, feel free to do so. If not, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Brother Sal, and thank everybody for tuning in to the 33rd episode of the Relationship Challenge. And if you've missed any of it, it's on Debate Talk for You on YouTube. We've had conversations to, does laying with the woman make her your wife? Did the Messiah do away with divorce? Just a few trigger and a response to F word. What else, Sister Mayanah?
Broke pockets, broken homes.
Broke pockets, broken home, how financial situations affect the reality of our relationships with one another. We've talked about divorce. We've talked about one of them that came up recently. We've talked about contraceptives. We've talked about is it lawful birth control? Is it lawful? So, again, all things dealing with relationships and all of the stumbling blocks within our community, we pretty much talked about it. So go ahead and check it out on Debate Talk for You YouTube replay. Brother Sal?
All right, we're going to pretty much wrap it up, but anybody have an idea what the next show is going to be? You can just put it out there? Or
Brother Sal, let the audience tell us. Audience, if you're out there, and it's something that we have not talked about in 33 episodes, and shout out to Brother Awar wherever you are. This is only like the second episode you've missed, so we're going to let you fly on this one, Brother Awar. So, in 33 episodes of all the things that we've talked about, if we've missed something and there's something that you want to speak about, let us know, and we'll do an audience request.
Shalom, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a blessing to talk to y'all. And I'm always listening, so y'all donate and support Debate Talk for You.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Mayanah, any quick last words you want to say, Mayanah?
No, I just wanted to, express my gratitude for having another opportunity to speak with the people and to address the concerns that we have found out in the trenches. And I'll speak to you next time.
2017, Big Truth, Debate Talk for You. What up? talk for you so you can absorb information free of charge so you can afford. Get poppin', live off the greatest doctrine. Sip the juice, know the ledge like the great Rakim. On a mission, not a small time thing. Defense biblical, offense got the haters watching. Hands are skill, footwork is ill. Get in the den, see if you can stand for real. If you rep Kim and Cool, yo, I rep Israel. If you Torah based only or new as well, welcome to listen. Style always fair decision. Two sides come together to compare what's written. Seeking the facts, seeking the max, teaching the acts, leaking the tracks. Call while you eating your snacks. Music in my bones, DNA, C, double E and K.